My name is Robert Thompson. I'm 67 years old, and last Thursday, my only daughter told me I was too poor to join her family vacation. She looked me in the eyes, the same eyes that watch her take her first steps, and said I would embarrass her in front of her rich friends. If you've ever been rejected by someone you die for, you need to hear this. You're not family enough to afford this trip, my daughter said, sliding the vacation photos across the dinner.
The meatloaf sat untouched on my plate, growing cold as Rachel's words hung in the autumn air of my Kansas City home. Outside, October leaves scraped against the window like fingernails on glass, but nothing compared to the scratching sensation in my chest as my only daughter dismissed me with a wave of her manicured hand. "Dad, seriously," Rachel continued, her husband Brad nodding beside her like a trained seal. "This is a couple's retreat to Aspen, the Whitmore Lodge. It's exclusive." I set down my fork carefully, the metal clicking against my mother's china. The same plates Rachel used to eat from as a child, back when she'd climb into my lap and whisper, "You're my hero, Daddy." "I just thought maybe I could join for a day or two," I said quietly. "It's been 3 years since since Mom died, yes." Rachel's voice carried that sharp edge she'd developed after marrying Brad, after moving to their Prairie Village mansion, after deciding that her father's modest ranch home in Independence represented everything she wanted to escape. "Dad, the room rates alone are $2,000 a night. The spa packages, the private skiing lessons, it's not your world." Brad leaned forward, his Rolex catching the overhead light. "What Rachel means is this trip is about networking. My partners from the firm, their wives, you understand." I understood perfectly. I understood that my daughter had become someone I barely recognized, someone who measured love in dollar signs and social status, someone who looked at my flannel shirt and saw failure instead of the man who'd worked 18-hour days building something from nothing. "You can barely afford to maintain this place." Rachel gestured around my dining room with barely concealed disdain. "The wallpaper's peeling. That truck in your driveway is 15 years old." Little Emma, my 8-year-old granddaughter, pushed her green beans around her plate. "But Grandpa tells the best stories. Can't he come tell stories?" "Eat your vegetables, Emma," Rachel snapped. "Grandpa has responsibilities here." The word responsibilities dripped with implication, the kind of burden they assumed I'd become. 3 years of widowhood had apparently transformed me from father to obligation, from family to footnote. I smiled then, the same quiet smile that had unnerved competitors in boardrooms across the country. "You're absolutely right. I couldn't possibly afford your lifestyle." Brad's chest puffed with satisfaction. "Glad you understand, Robert. It's nothing personal." Nothing personal. My own daughter excluding me from family gatherings because my perceived poverty might embarrass her among the country club set. I watched Rachel help Emma into her designer coat, watched them gather their things with the efficiency of people eager to escape. "Thanks for dinner, Dad," Rachel said, pecking my cheek with cold lips. "Maybe we can do lunch when we get back, somewhere simple." As their Bentley purred away into the Missouri night, I stood at my window, looking at the reflection of a man they never bothered to truly know. Tomorrow, I decided, I would book my own trip to Aspen. But not just any trip.
If this story of family betrayal resonates with you, don't scroll past. Hit that subscribe button. Someone you know needs to hear how this ends. $20 million sat in my investment accounts while my daughter called me poor, but keeping that secret had been my late wife's final wish. The morning after Rachel's rejection, I sat in my small home office, staring at the computer screen that told a very different story than the one my daughter believed. The numbers glowed. $23.4 million accumulated from the sale of my software company 3 years ago, the same week cancer finally won its battle with my beloved Carol. "Promise me something," Carol had whispered from her hospital bed, her fingers weak but insistent in mine. "Don't let the money change how people see you. Don't let it change Emma." I'd promised, thinking she meant the modest life insurance policy everyone assumed was my only asset. But Carol knew about the acquisition offers, knew about the patents, knew that her husband's little computer hobby had revolutionized supply chain algorithms for Fortune 500 companies. People show their true colors when money's involved, she'd said. Even family, especially family. Now, sipping coffee from the same cracked mug I'd used for 20 years, I understood her wisdom. Rachel had shown her colors vividly, designer dress colors, apparently, that clashed with her father's flannel. The phone rang, disrupting my contemplation. The caller ID showed Tom Morrison, my former business partner, who'd helped broker the sale to TechCorp. "Bobby, how's retirement treating you?" "Quietly," I said, which was true enough. "Listen, I'm calling about the Whitmore Lodge in Aspen. My wife's nephew manages the place. Says they've got some big corporate group coming in next week, throwing money around like confetti. Reminded me of the old days when we'd watch those Wall Street types burn through cash." My pulse quickened. "The Whitmore Lodge?" "Yeah, beautiful property. Actually, between you and me, they're looking for a buyer. Owner's getting old, wants out. Asking price is around $18 million, but I bet they'd take 15 cash." I set down my coffee cup slowly. "Tom, what would you say if I wanted to make some waves in Aspen next week?" His laugh boomed through the phone. "I'd say it's about damn time you stopped hiding in that house. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about teaching someone a lesson about assumptions." "This about Rachel?" Tom's voice softened. He'd known my daughter since she was in pigtails. "Bobby, she still doesn't know about the sale?" "She knows what she wants to know, that her father is an embarrassment." "Want me to make some calls? I still have connections at the lodge." I stared at the family photo on my desk. Carol, Rachel, and me at Rachel's college graduation. We looked so happy then, before Brad, before the money changed hands, before Carol got sick. "Make the calls," I said, "but keep it quiet. I want to arrive unexpectedly." After hanging up, I opened my browser and began researching. The Whitmore Lodge, 47 rooms, 3 restaurants, a world-class spa, private ski access. The presidential suite ran for $8,000 a night. Their website boasted about exclusivity, about catering to discerning clients who expect perfection. Perfect. I made 3 phone calls that morning. First, to the private jet company I'd quietly used twice since Carol's death, both times to visit her sister in Seattle without Rachel knowing. Second, to my personal shopper in Denver, someone Tom had recommended who could outfit me appropriately for Aspen's elite crowd. Third, to my lawyer, to discuss the implications of purchasing a hotel. "Mr. Thompson, are you sure this is about investment and not something else? Can it be both?"
If you've ever been underestimated by those who should know you best, you need to see what happens next. Hit subscribe. This story's just beginning. While Rachel planned her exclusive getaway, I orchestrated something she never saw coming, using the fortune she never knew existed. The private aviation terminal at Kansas City International looked different at 6 a.m., bathed in purple dawn light as I pulled up in my old F-150. The valet's expression shifted from dismissive to alert when I handed him the keys along with a $100 tip. "Take care of her," I said. "She's got sentimental value." Inside, the concierge who'd helped arrange my flight greeted me with professional warmth. "Mr. Thompson, your Gulfstream will be ready in 30 minutes. The flight to Aspen should be smooth. Weather's perfect." I settled into the leather chair with my coffee, served in actual china, not the paper cups Rachel assumed were my standard, and pulled out my phone. 17 missed calls from Tom Morrison. "Bobby, you magnificent bastard," Tom said when I called back. "You actually did it?" "Did what?" "Don't play coy. The owner of the Whitmore Lodge just called me, giddy as a schoolboy, says someone made a cash offer of $16 million, closing immediately. Anonymous buyer working through a trust." Interesting.
Interesting my ass. When are you arriving? This afternoon. Rachel gets there tomorrow. And she has no idea her old man just bought the hotel where she's planning to social climb. None whatsoever. I paused, watching ground crew prepare the Gulf Stream. Tom, I need one more favor. Can you make sure the staff knows not to reveal the new ownership immediately? I want to, ease into it. You want to see how they treat you when they think you're nobody. Something like that. The flight to Aspen took 90 minutes of pure luxury. Leather seats that fully reclined, a flight attendant who called me sir without a trace of condescension. Windows that showed the Rockies rising like white-capped waves frozen in time. I thought about Rachel and Brad flying commercial the next day, probably in first class, feeling superior to everyone in coach. If only they knew their poor dad owned the plane passing overhead. My personal shopper Miranda met me at the private terminal in Aspen. She was everything Tom had promised, discreet, efficient, and with an eye for understated wealth rather than flashy displays. "Mr. Thompson," she said, assessing me with professional interest. "Tom says you need to look the part without looking like you're trying." Exactly. Old money, not new money? Old money that doesn't need to prove anything. She smiled. My favorite kind. The shopping expedition took 3 hours. Cashmere sweaters that felt like clouds, wool pants that probably cost more than Rachel thought I had in my checking account, hand-finished shoes from Italy, a watch that whispered rather than shouted its value. But also, at my insistence, a few flannel shirts. The finest flannel money could buy, but flannel nonetheless. Staying true to yourself, Miranda observed. I like it. The Whitmore Lodge rose from the mountain like something from a fairy tale, all timber and stone and glass, catching the afternoon sun like a jewel. The valet who took my rental Range Rover was the first test. He saw the vehicle, the clothes, the quiet confidence, and his entire demeanor shifted to respectful attention. "Welcome to the Whitmore Lodge, sir. Are you checking in?" "I am." The lobby was everything the website promised. Soaring ceilings, massive fireplaces, that subtle scent of wealth that seemed to permeate places like this. The desk clerk, a young man named James, according to his nameplate, smiled professionally. "Your name, sir?" "Thompson. Robert Thompson." His fingers flew over the keyboard, then slowed. His eyes widened slightly. "Mr. Thompson? Of course, we've been expecting you." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "The owner left specific instructions about your stay. You're in the Summit penthouse, complimentary naturally." "Naturally," I agreed, enjoying his barely contained curiosity. Have you ever wanted to see the shock on someone's face when they realize they were wrong about everything? Don't leave now. Subscribe to witness the moment Rachel discovers the truth.
Rachel walked into the lodge like she owned it, never suspecting her poor father actually did, and was watching from the balcony above. From the mezzanine overlooking the lobby, I watched my daughter make her entrance the next afternoon. Rachel commanded attention in her designer ski outfit that had probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. Brad strutted beside her, pulling enough Louis Vuitton luggage to stock a boutique. Little Emma trailed behind, looking overwhelmed about the grandeur. "Bradley and Rachel Henderson," Brad announced to James at the front desk, his voice carrying that particular tone of people who expect recognition. "We're part of the Patterson Group." "Of course, Mr. Henderson. Welcome to the Whitmore Lodge." I noticed James' subtle glance upward, catching my eye for just a moment. I'd briefed the senior staff that morning. Observe and report, but maintain absolute discretion about the ownership change. "I trust our suite is ready?" Rachel's voice cut through the lobby ambiance. "The Mountain View Premium I specifically requested."
Actually, Mrs. Henderson, we've upgraded you to one of our signature suites, the Evergreen Residence. Our compliments. Rachel's eyebrows shot up. Brad puffed his chest. Well, that's more like it. The Patterson Group does bring significant business here. From my perch, I could see Tom Morrison hiding a smirk behind his coffee cup at the fireplace lounge. He'd arrived that morning, ostensibly for a coincidental vacation, but really to witness what he called the most expensive lesson in humility ever taught. I descended the back staircase and positioned myself in the library alcove, perfectly situated to observe the restaurant where Rachel's group had dinner reservations. Sure enough, at 7 sharp, the Patterson party swept in. 4 couples, all wearing their success-like armor. Brad was just telling us about his latest acquisition, $40 million industrial complex. Closed it in a week. That's nothing, another man chimed in. Wait till you hear about the pharmaceutical patent we just secured. Rachel glowed in this environment, her laugh tinkling like expensive crystal. Brad's always been gifted at seeing value where others see trash. Speaking of trash, Brad said, and my stomach tightened, Rachel's father actually wanted to tag along on this trip. Can you imagine? The table erupted in laughter. Your father? A woman with diamonds the size of almonds leaned forward. The one from that little house in Independence? That's the one, Rachel sighed dramatically. Sweet man, but completely out of touch with reality. He actually thought he could afford this place. Some people just don't understand their limitations, Brad added, swirling his wine. But what do you do when family can't keep up? Rachel finished. You love them from a distance. Emma, seated at the end of the table, pushed her food around. Grandpa would like the mountains, she said quietly. Eat your salmon, darling, Rachel dismissed her. It cost more than Grandpa's weekly grocery bill. I stood from my concealed position and walked past their table, my new cashmere sweater and perfectly tailored pants rendering me almost unrecognizable. Rachel glanced up, her eyes sliding over me without recognition, dismissing me as just another wealthy guest. The irony was delicious. Later that evening, I called the senior staff to my penthouse. The hotel manager, Jeffrey, spared out the next day's booking schedules. The Patterson Group has the spa booked from 10 to 2, private skiing lessons at 3, cocktail reception at 6. Perfect, I said. I want you to arrange something special for tomorrow's cocktail reception. Announce it as a surprise for all guests. The new owner will be making his first public appearance. Jeffrey's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Shall we prepare anything specific? Champagne, the best we have. And Jeffrey, make sure my family has front row seats to the announcement. If you've ever wanted to see karma delivered in person, you can't miss what happens next. Subscribe now. Tomorrow changes everything. The cocktail reception started with Rachel bragging about wealth she didn't have, and ended with her discovering who really owned everything around her. The Whitmore Lodge's grand ballroom sparkled under crystal chandeliers as guests mingled for the unexpected ownership announcement. I stood in the corner, anonymously observing as Rachel held court near the ice sculpture, her voice carrying over the classical quartet. Brad's considering buying a vacation property here, she told her circle of new friends. Something modest, maybe 5 or 6 million. We believe in understated elegance. Understated while wearing a $10,000 dress and diamonds that caught light from across the room. I sipped my scotch, 30-year-old Macallan that cost more per glass than Rachel imagined I had in my wallet. Tom Morrison appeared at my elbow, struggling to contain his amusement. She really has no idea you're here. None. She's been walking past me for 2 days without recognition. The clothes make that much difference?
The clothes, the context, and the assumption that someone like me couldn't possibly be here. I watched Emma escape from her mother's side, wandering toward the dessert table. People see what they expect to see. Jeffrey stepped onto the small stage, tapping the microphone gently. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." The room quieted, Rachel positioning herself prominently at the front, probably expecting to network with whoever the new money was. The Whitmore Lodge has been a symbol of excellence in Aspen for 40 years. Today marks a new chapter in our history. The property has been acquired by someone who values not just luxury, but family, authenticity, and the true meaning of hospitality. Rachel whispered something to Brad, probably speculating on which tech billionaire or hedge fund had bought the place. "It is my honor," Jeffrey continued, "to introduce the new owner of the Whitmore Lodge." I set down my glass and began walking through the crowd. People parted unconsciously, the quality of my clothes and bearing creating a natural path. Rachel still hadn't looked in my direction, focused entirely on the stage. "Mr. Robert Thompson." I stepped into the spotlight just as Rachel's head whipped around. The champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor with a crystalline crash that seemed to echo forever. "Hello, sweetheart," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying to every corner of the silent room. Rachel's face cycled through expressions like a slot machine. Confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally a dawning horror as the pieces clicked together. Brad's mouth hung open, his usual swagger evaporating like morning mist. "Thank you all for joining us tonight. When I purchased the Whitmore Lodge this week, I did so because I believe in investing in places where families create memories, where people come together, where no one is excluded because they're perceived as, how did someone put it? Too poor to afford it." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Several people who'd been at dinner with Rachel the previous night shifted uncomfortably. Emma's voice piped up from near the dessert table. "Grandpa, you're here!" "Hi, Princess," I said, opening my arms as she ran to me. The 8-year-old didn't care about money or appearances. She just wanted her grandfather's hug. But how?" Rachel finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Jeffrey, please ensure all our guests have champagne. This is a celebration, after all." I led my stunned daughter and son-in-law to a private sitting room adjacent to the ballroom. Emma stayed attached to my hand, sensing the tension, but not understanding it. $16 million, Rachel said faintly. "The hotel cost $16 million. 16.3, actually. Plus another $2 million for immediate renovations and staff bonuses." "You don't have that kind of money," Brad's voice cracked. "We've seen your house, your truck." "You've seen what I chose to show you." I settled into a leather wingback chair, Emma climbing onto my lap. 3 years ago, I sold my software company to TechCorp for $23 million. Rachel sank onto the sofa like her strings had been cut. $23 million? Your mother knew. She was the one who suggested I keep it quiet, to see who loved me for me, not for what I could provide. Every family has secrets, but not all secrets are meant to hurt. If you're still watching, hit subscribe, because Rachel's reaction will leave you speechless. The truth was out, but watching Rachel grapple with her guilt and greed would prove more painful than any revenge I'd planned. Rachel's tears came suddenly, mascara creating dark rivers down her perfectly contoured cheeks. But I'd learned to read my daughter over 32 years, and these weren't tears of remorse, they were tears of calculation, already trying to figure out how to spin this to her advantage. "Dad," she sobbed, reaching for my hand, "why didn't you tell me? We could have—" Could have what? I asked quietly, keeping Emma close. Included me in your exclusive vacations? Treated me with basic respect? That's not fair, Brad interjected, his face red with either embarrassment or anger. We thought you were struggling. We were trying to protect you from feeling inadequate? By calling me too poor to my face? By laughing about my little house with your friends? Emma looked up at me with those innocent eyes. Grandpa, are you rich? I have money, sweetheart, but being rich isn't about money. Then what's it about? It's about how you treat people. It's about family. It's about love that doesn't have a price tag. Rachel stood abruptly, pacing to the window overlooking the ski slopes. This is cruel, this whole charade, buying the hotel, hiding here, watching us. It's manipulative. Like telling your in-laws I have dementia? She spun around. What? Martha Patterson mentioned it at the spa this morning. How brave you are, dealing with the father showing signs of cognitive decline. How you're protecting me by keeping me at home. The color drained from Rachel's face. I never said dementia specifically. No, you just strongly implied I was losing my faculties. Made it easier to explain why I wasn't invited, didn't it? Tom Morrison knocked and entered, carrying a folder. Sorry to interrupt, Bobby, but you asked for these? I took the papers, glancing through them. Thank you, Tom. I turned back to Rachel and Brad. These are the messages you've sent to various family members over the past year. Aunt Catherine in Boston, Cousin Michael in San Diego, your college roommate, Sarah. You went through my... No. They came to me, concerned about my apparently deteriorating condition, worried about the father you described as confused, struggling with reality, making poor financial decisions. Brad grabbed the papers, scanning them. His expression shifted as he read Rachel's carefully crafted narrative of my supposed decline. My God, Rachel, you told everyone he was losing it? I was protecting our reputation, she snapped. How would it look if people knew my father couldn't afford to join us? It was easier to paint me as senile rather than poor. I stood, lifting Emma and setting her gently on the chair. Where are you going? Rachel demanded. Emma and I are going to get hot chocolate and watch the snow. You two need to talk. I paused at the threshold. Your suite is paid for through the week. After that, you need to make other arrangements. You're evicting us? I'm treating you like any other guest. The special treatment you never knew you were getting? That ends Sunday. Dad, please. Rachel, you had 3 years to show me who you really are. You chose to show me someone who values appearances over family, money over love, reputation over truth. That's not the daughter I raised. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are those we love most. If this is breaking your heart like it's breaking mine, please subscribe because redemption is still possible. With 5 days left in Aspen, Rachel had to face not just her father's wealth, but the poverty of her own choices, while her 8-year-old daughter saw everything. The next morning, I found Emma alone at breakfast, pushing scrambled eggs around her Wedgwood plate while her parents presumably fought in their suite. She looked up when I approached, her face brightening despite the shadows under her eyes. "Grandpa, can I sit with you?" "Always, Princess." Jeffrey discreetly moved us to a private corner table overlooking the mountains. Emma ordered pancakes shaped like snowflakes at this particular establishment, while I settled for coffee and reflection. Mom cried all night. Dad slept on the couch. I'm sorry you had to hear that. Are you really rich? Yes. Then why does your truck have that funny noise when it starts? I smiled. Because that truck carried your grandmother to our first date.
brought your mother home from the hospital when she was born. Some things are worth more than money. Mom says money is everything. What do you think? Emma considered this seriously, her 8-year-old wisdom unclouded by adult complications. I think you being here is better than money, even if you were poor. My throat tightened, out of the mouths of babes. Rachel appeared in the doorway, her designer sunglasses failing to hide her swollen eyes. She hesitated, seeing us together, then approached tentatively. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the empty chair. Emma looked at me. I nodded. Rachel sat down, removing her sunglasses to reveal the full extent of her sleepless night. For the first time in years, she looked vulnerable, human, like the daughter who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms. "I've lost everything," she said quietly. "You have a husband, a daughter, your health, a beautiful home. Brad wants a divorce." The words hung in the mountain air like ice crystals. Emma's fork clattered to her plate. "He says I've humiliated him, that my lies about you reflect on his integrity. The partners are already talking." Rachel's voice was hollow. "Apparently Martha Patterson has been texting everyone about the shocking deception." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" She looked at me directly for the first time. "You planned this whole thing to humiliate me." "I planned this to show you the truth. The humiliation, you brought that on yourself." "Dad," her voice cracked, "I'm 32 years old, about to be divorced, publicly shamed, and I just realized I don't know my own father. How did we get here?" "One choice at a time," I said gently. "You chose Brad's world over ours, chose appearances over authenticity, chose to be embarrassed by me instead of proud. You were always so modest, the flannel shirts, the old truck. How was I supposed to know the money? You were supposed to know me, to value me, to include me regardless." Emma reached across the table, taking both our hands. "Can't we start over, like in my games when you get a do-over?" Rachel's tears fell onto the white tablecloth. "It doesn't work that way, baby." "Why not?" Emma persisted with the stubborn logic of childhood. "Grandpa owns this whole place. He could make it work that way." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. Beneath the designer clothes and carefully crafted persona, I could still see glimpses of the girl who used to help me build blanket forts, who cried when we had to put down our old dog, who wrote me Father's Day cards calling me her hero. "Your mother's right, Emma. We can't erase the past. But maybe," I squeezed both their hands, "maybe we can write a better future." "Even after everything?" Rachel whispered. "Your mother loved you until her last breath. She would want me to try." Rachel broke down completely then, the kind of raw, honest tears I hadn't seen from her since Carol's funeral. Emma climbed into her mother's lap, and suddenly they weren't the social climbing Rachel and overlooked Emma. They were just a mother and daughter, clinging to each other in a moment of genuine emotion. Family isn't about perfection. It's about forgiveness. If you believe in second chances, hit that subscribe button. This story isn't over yet.
Sunday arrived with checkout time and a decision. Would I let my daughter leave in shame or show her what unconditional love really means? The Whitmore Lodge lobby buzzed with its usual Sunday checkout chaos, but I only had eyes for the small family near the entrance. Rachel stood with 2 suitcases, a far cry from the luggage parade she had arrived with. Brad had left yesterday, taking most of their belongings and all of his self-righteousness. Emma clutched her mother's hand, her little face etched with uncertainty. I approached them slowly, noting how other guests gave Rachel a wide berth. News of the ownership reveal had spread through Aspen's elite like wildfire, turning her from social climber to social pariah in less than 48 hours. "Your car is here," Jeffrey informed Rachel, professionally but coldly. The staff's warmth had evaporated once they learned how she'd treated me. "Thank you," Rachel replied, quietly, her voice stripped of its usual commanding tone. "Wait," I said. Everyone turned. Guests, staff, my daughter. I walked to Rachel and Emma, pulling an envelope from my jacket. "What's this?" Rachel asked. "Open it." Her hands trembled as she extracted the papers. Her eyes widened as she read. "Dad, this is the deed to a house in Aspen. The Meadowbrook Cottage. 4 bedrooms, mountain views, excellent schools for Emma. It's yours." "I don't understand." "Yes, you do." I knelt down to Emma's level. "Your grandmother used to say that love isn't about what people deserve. It's about what we choose to give anyway." "But Rachel's voice broke. "I was horrible to you. I told people you were losing your mind. I excluded you, mocked you, valued you only for what I thought you couldn't provide." "Yes," I agreed simply, "you did all of that." "Then why?" I stood, meeting my daughter's confused gaze. "Because that's what parents do. We love our children even when they lose their way. We provide homes, not just houses, but homes where they can heal and remember who they really are. The house is 3 blocks from here. I've also set up a trust fund for Emma's education and a monthly allowance for you both while you rebuild your life. Not enough to avoid working, but enough to avoid desperation." She stared at the deed. "This must be worth $2 million. 2.3, but who's counting?" "Dad, I can't accept this, not after—" "I can and you will, but there are conditions." Her shoulders tensed. "Conditions?" "Sunday dinners. Every week, you and Emma come to dinner. Real dinner like we used to have when Mom was alive. No phones, no pretense, just family." "That's it?" "And therapy, individual and family. We have 28 years of authentic relationship to rebuild and 3 years of damage to repair." Emma tugged on my jacket. "Does this mean we're staying near you, Grandpa?" "If your mother agrees, yes." Rachel looked around the lobby, at the wealth she had craved, the people she had tried to impress, the life she had built on appearances. Then she looked at Emma and me, the family she had nearly thrown away for an illusion. "I agree," she whispered, "to all of it. Brad will like this. He might fight the divorce harder if he knows about the house." Brad made his choice. He chose his reputation over his family, just like I did. I won't make that mistake again. I pulled both of them into a hug, feeling Rachel resist for a moment, before melting into it, becoming for just a moment the little girl who used to think her father hung the moon. "Can we see the house now?" Emma asked, excitedly. "Actually," I checked my watch, "there's someone else who wants to meet you first." I led them to the restaurant where Tom Morrison was waiting with someone I hadn't seen in years, Carol's sister Patricia, who'd flown in from Seattle that morning. "Aunt Patricia?" Rachel gasped. Patricia stood, her expression stern. "Rachel Henderson, we need to talk about your mother's last wishes." Rachel paled. "Mom's wishes?" Patricia pulled out a letter, worn from reading. "She wrote this when she knew she was dying. She asked me to give it to you only if you ever lost your way so badly that your father had to do something dramatic to save you." With trembling hands, Rachel took her mother's letter. As she read Carol's words about love, family, and the danger of valuing wealth over worth, tears streamed down her face. "How did she know?" Rachel whispered. "She knew you," Patricia said gently. "Both your potential for greatness and your weakness for appearances.
She loved you enough to prepare for both.
Every parent's love is tested, but few are tested like this. If you believe in redemption, in family, in love that refuses to give up, please subscribe and share the story. Someone needs to hear that it's never too late to come home. Thank you for staying with us through this journey of pain, revelation, and redemption. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to choose family over fortune, love over pride. And remember, the greatest inheritance we can leave our children isn't money, but the knowledge that they are loved unconditionally, even when they lose their way.